On 9/11, I actually in the beginning had no clue anything had happened because I started my day in class, 8 a.m., and I went straight through until 12:15 every Tuesday, Thursday. So it was a Tuesday, so I started at 8 a.m., came out of my class, they said a plane hit the towers. I thought, oh, a small plane hit the towers. It wasn't until I got to my third class, which was after 11, and the professor who had never let a class go in 40 years said, you all need to go back to your dorm rooms and watch this. This is history. And that's when I knew something major happened. And it was really major. And that's 9/11 for me. I will always remember it forever.
I was working at the phone company at the time, and the biggest thing that I remember about it is later that night when I came home, Michelle and I were sitting on the back deck, and we looked at each other and we thought, this is probably the only time in our life that we'll look up and there will never be any air traffic in the sky. And it was just eerily, real quiet, real peaceful, almost scary. It was peaceful. But I can just remember that feeling of knowing there was nobody, no planes in the sky, no anything going on. But that's one of the things that jumps out at me the most.
I was living in Tallulah Falls at the time, and I had just stepped outside to take my dog for a walk, and he pulled me super hard, and I fell and twisted my ankle really bad, and made my way back inside and got ice and sat in a chair and turned on the TV, and I guess the first tower had just fallen at that time, and it was all over the news, and the cameras were all over, the smoke coming out of the first tower, and the plane flew right into the second tower, right as I was watching it. And I'm getting chill bumps talking about it now. It was surreal. You just don't think that, what am I watching? Is this a movie? Is this for real? And I remember it being so quiet in Tallulah. Like, it's never really quiet. The highway's always, roaring, and trucks are, always making their way down the road. And I just felt like I was the only one on the planet, and it was just super quiet. And days after that, the big bridge here in Tallulah Falls was covered in American flags and signs, and I walked down with my family, my children, and we put flowers and, on the flags, and it was just a, unbelievable, moving time, and it felt like patriotism was, at an all-time high.
I was in room 116 giving a history exam to our American history class, and a student had finished early. He had gone to the computer lab that was down the hallway, and he came back into the room and announced to my whole entire class that a plane had just struck the Twin Towers. And at that point, my TV actually had a coat hanger on it, and we were able to pick up the local news. So I quickly took up the test because this was history. I couldn't have taught this lesson any better than what the students could experience. And how we've talked about history repeating itself and different things, it came true that day. I spent my planning period that day on the phone with a family from New York trying to track down their mother, because Tamara and Sean John were students here, and their mother was supposed to be at the hospital right near the Twin Towers working. And thank goodness she had not gone into work that day. So it's a day that I will remember. It's very hard to sum up what happened to our country, but to watch our country come together is something that we can't imagine right now. That was one of the most powerful things of that experience. That there was so much loss of life. There was war that we had studied, we had taught for years that came to our own country. And we experienced in that day. And the tragedy that continues to affect the families from that day.
I remember I was teaching at a middle school at the time, and I was sitting at my computer. And another teacher came by and said that, one of the towers had gone down, and it was, didn't seem like much time later than the second one. And I distinctively remember him saying that this was a terrorist attack. Never, experienced anything like it. None of us did, but, that was the day that, we knew the world had changed. I remember that evening when I was outside walking around. I remember looking up at the sky, and that was the first time that, in a long time, that, there were no planes in the sky. It was just very, very solemn time.
I remember September 11th being a very beautiful day. The weather was awesome. I don't know why I remember that, but I also remember driving back from my mother's that morning back here to school. I was a dorm counselor, listening to a local radio station out of Atlanta and saying that a plane had hit one of the towers, and I was thinking that somebody just lost control of their plane. And then I went to the dorm and turned it on and saw the second plane hit. And I checked my voicemail, and I was told, at the time I was in United States Marine Corps Reserves, I was told to get to Atlanta immediately. And from that point forward, my life changed to where I am this day. Within 6 months, I was in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, as a prison guard for any Taliban or Al-Qaeda prisoners. And then within years, I was in Iraq and Afghanistan. So September 11th really had an effect on my life to this day, where I'm still in the military. And it was a day that I will always remember.
Classes had just changed. First period was gone. Second period was just underway. Students started coming in and saying, a plane has hit one of the towers. And the first thing you think about is, okay, like a little plane has hit the tower. Maybe pilot got lost or whatever. And it wasn't until, and then more and more students came in saying things. And of course, I didn't look at the television. I didn't go online or anything. And then my husband, who was at home, was watching it, and his emails started coming in, and they came in, and they came in, and he told me everything that was happening as it happened. And then, of course, when I got home from that day, then I could see it myself. It's hard to, it's unbelievable. And I guess initial shock gave way to the realization of what happened and what was to come. But it just, it was a day that you won't ever forget. And it's the only way to say it, you'll never forget it.
I was sitting on the floor in front of a television watching the morning news. I lived in Montana at the time. I just moved there, and so I was watching it live. And they were reporting that the first one had happened, and suddenly I watched the second one hit the tower, and I knew that something awful had happened, and felt more alone than I've ever felt in my entire life. And time stood still and was moving faster than ever, all at the same time. And I ran the Marine Corps Marathon a month later, and it ran right past the Pentagon, and it was impossible just to run by it, and we just all stood and stared at the blown out side, and it was this moment I'll never forget.
It was the beginning of my second block. I was teaching an honors trig class, and the students came in, and it was several of them were football players, and they come in and they just start running to me saying, turn the TV on, turn the TV on. And I was like, oh, y'all sit down. We've got to get started with class. And I could just see it on their face, and I had not heard anything about it. And so they were worried. And so I turned the TV on, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And so I was trying to be calm for them, and sorry. And then I was thinking about my own children who were young at the time, and I wanted to be with them. And it was just, we just watched, and we saw the towers fall, and it was just like, you just, so unreal. And sorry. And every time I think of those students, that is what I think of. And it's been 20 years, and it's just so hard to even fathom even today. And I'm so sorry. I've even, on the anniversaries, I've even reached out to those students and, just tell them that they're the faces that I still see when I think of it. And just I'm so blessed that God helped us through that. And just pray that the world will just change. And some days I don't know that it ever will, but I'm just glad that I have faith in God, and it helps me through all of this. Even what we're going through now, it's just I don't see how anyone survives all of this with peace without having the Lord as their Savior.
I remember exactly where I was in my classroom with my students. I don't remember if it was announced or someone came to the room, but we turned the TV on, and when I first saw some of the things in the news, it was shock and disbelief. I remember kind of the after effects, seeing the city and just the rubble and everything that went on. I remember seeing the heroes risking their lives. I mean, that was, and hearing about just awesome stories of just actual self-sacrifice. I remember the unifying effect it even had on our nation. That came a little after, but we were all unified over that. That was some of the strongest patriotism, I guess, I've ever seen in our country. So yeah, there was shock, there was disbelief, but then when that subsided, you saw the stories of the heroes and just everyone unifying over that fact, the tragedy that brought everyone together.
My mother died on September 8, 2001. We buried her on September 10th. On September 11th, I was making my way back to my family after her funeral. And it comforts me to think of Jesus calling her home in time to welcome all of the souls we lost that day.